pausing their debris removal. They've not been able to go through with some of the rebuilding in that state because they simply don't know whether the federal dollars will be there. President Trump announced for what he calls a missile defense program for the U.S.
Hypersonic.
Wow, Rad, you need to figure that out, buddy. How do I get that?
Completing the job that President Reagan started 40 years ago, forever ending the business.
Don't mute that way. Don't mute that way on screen. There, he's muted. Oh my goodness. What a way to return to the cross of the Crescent. Welcome everybody. Kufar Akbar. This is
wait, I wasn't muted?
I was listening to your radio, brother. I'm not sure what it sounded pretty like a discussion.
All right.
Sorry. Anyway, we are again going live to you from Dal Arhad Kafiristan here in the cavernous depths of the Kafir Cave. I'm your host, Eric Thekafir, coming to you on a Tuesday. Me and Rad have been discussing bringing this show back for quite a while. To be honest with you, I just got kind of burned out, and I needed to take some time to rethink some things. And I've had some people reach out to me asking if everything's okay, and I appreciate that. I honestly do. I even I reached out for some advice on what to talk to about in the future from Miss Thompson. Karen, she's been on the show before, and she sent me a whole bunch of things that I haven't even gotten close to getting through, but we will be discussing those. So what we're going to do here, I think in the future for this show, is we're going to focus on two main steps. We have got some nasty weather here in Kafiristan. There was a tornado warning up to about 5 minutes ago. I saw the tree in my front yard just kind of going a little side, and I thought, uh-oh. But it's still blowing pretty hard now. But anyway, we want to focus on two things. I titled today's show Assisting Apostasy, for the simple reason is that the apostasy rates in Islam have really grown exponentially. This is a common topic that's being discussed on the big shows, God Logic, David Wood's show, IP, Apostate Prophet, all these guys, they're talking about the increased rates of apostasy across the Muslim world. And maybe we can give it a little nudge here in the show, but what I want to do is I want to focus on two things, and I don't want to say two things only because there'll be other topics that we can talk about all day long. But number one is Mecca. And this is my thinking on it, and you guys can tell me if I'm wrong. You can tell me wrong. Let me turn the chat on here, or at least look in the chat. Sorry, I didn't have it on. Okay, folks, I'm sorry. I didn't even see that you were there in the chat. Yeah, the avalanche of apostasy, Rob. Yeah, good call. What was I saying? The reason why I want to focus on Mecca is for one simple. It's simple. Facts are hard things to ignore. We can sit here and talk to Muslims until we're blue in the face about the Quran. What is it? Well, what does the original Arabic say? Or it really doesn't mean this. Shut up. I don't care. To be honest with you, these guys go round and round with these Muslims all day long on their shows, and it's boring already. These guys are going to lie to you until they're blue in the face about what the Quran does say and what it does say. David Wood has this great thing going right now where they're reading through the Quran. I actually tried to get in on that. They're reading through the Quran to identify wherever they can find the Bible mentioned, the Gospel mentioned, the Torah mentioned, or anything that talks about Christian scriptures. But I couldn't get logged onto his community for some reason. I tried, but anyway, what they're doing is they're identifying where the Quran mentions the Bible. And you can bring this up all day long. I was listening to Chris Claus's stream today, and they're having some discussion on there where their Muslim was saying, well, the Quran doesn't really mean what it says. That's basically what he was saying. And I'm thinking, why bother? Why bother on people who are so bent on twisting the meaning of their own scriptures, which is so plainly evident to everybody today, what it does and does not say. If you focus on something concrete, something that you can prove, something that you can demonstrate, that proves that their Quran is wrong, then hashtag is going to the Quran. Oh, hating. What does this mean? What does this mean, Rob? I'm not following you. Is that Hatun Tosh you meant to say? Was the author of the crowd, Robert Spencer? Yeah. Yeah, as a matter of fact, I have Robert Spencer's Quran back here somewhere. I'm not looking for it. Anyway, the point I'm trying to make here, to wrap your minds around. Mecca is the center of Islam. It is the center of the Islamic practice today. They have to face that Hamajama 5 times a day. So what the Muslim has to do is they have to demonstrate that in 632 AD, what happened to Red? He must have dropped. He was out running errands. They have to demonstrate in 632 AD that city existed. They have to do it. They have to correlate. They have to, what's the word I'm not correlate. Correlate's not the right word. I see you're back there, Red. They have to not correlate. They have to synthesize. There we go. They have to synthesize the information that we have from the Sira, from the Hadith, and from the Quran with what we have today in Mecca, or what existed in Mecca in the 7th century and what we see today. They have to be able to synthesize that. The problem is they cannot. And I want to show you here just one simple thing. The Quran. Where does the Quran mention olive trees? And so one of the neatest things that we have at our disposal today is AI. AI is blowing it out of the water, folks. If you have not gotten on to using AI as opposed to Google, as opposed to Bing, DuckDuckGo, whatever you use, you need to start using it, because it refines your searches a lot faster and quicker, because it goes out and does your searches for you, is basically what it's doing. And it's picking that information and it's presenting it to you. So I typed in a question today: how do I share my screen? Share stream, share screen, add cam, share screen, share screen. Here we go. All right, I think this is it. And I can show it on the screen now. Okay, so what I did was I went into Grok. Grok's my favorite one. You can use Chat GGP, or what was that lady's name that they had on, they were mocking on David Wood's show? Him and AP were on there. But anyway, Lily something, I can't remember. But she kept, Chat GGP, do this. And then it would come back and say, Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, did such and such and such. It's like the fakest crap. Anyway, I like Grok the best. So I went in and I asked Grok, the Quran, okay, where in the Quran does it mention olive trees in Mecca? And here's why here's why I'm asking that question. Because olive tree, you cannot grow diddly / squat in Mecca. Nothing grows in Mecca. They get 4 inches of rain a year. So if Mecca is mentioning olive trees, talking about olive trees in this city, it's wrong, because there's never been any olive trees growing in Mecca. So I'm asking ChatGPT, or Grok, where does the Quran mention olive trees in Mecca? So let's see what it says. It does not explicitly mention olive trees in Mecca. I can I make that bigger? Let me see if I can make that bigger for y'all. There we go. Okay. It does not mention olive trees in Mecca. They're referenced several times, though. So here's the verse that I want to go to right here. Verse 95, verses 1 through 3. They're very short verses, like this is a verse, this is a verse, and then this is verse 3. So it says, by fig and olive, and by Mount Sinai, and by this secure city. So if it's saying by fig and by olive, and the olive, it's indicating that there are fig and olives on Mount Sinai and Mecca. Now, I know Grok does its best to try to defend the Quran and tries to defend Islam. Every time you turn around, it's trying to defend it. But you can't get around the fact that olive trees, the olive tree, the fig and olive, by this secure city. You can't get around that. I mean, it says it right there. So here again, you have a clear indication. You have a clear indication that the Quran is trying to tell us that there are olive trees in Mecca. Now, I've done several shows. We've done several shows discussing Mecca and what the Hadith literature. And we're going to do this every show, where I'm going to bring up one part of the Hadith literature, the Sira, the Quran, and show you how there's no synthesis here of what the literature is showing us and what we have on the ground, because you cannot synthesize the two. For an example, this is a great example. In the Quran, it talks about Abraham sending out Hagar and Ishmael. He's banishing them. Now, right before that, it talks about Ishmael and Abraham rebuilding the Kaaba. So this puts Abraham and Ishmael in Mecca, 20th century BC, 4,000 years ago, 2,000 years before Christ. So we should have 4,000 years of history from Mecca. Do we think we find that? Quick answer is no, we don't. However, in this story where he turns out Hagar and Ishmael, she goes running between the mountains of Safa and Marwa, which are about, I don't know, I can't remember how far. It's like 500 yards apart, I think was what they are. And they're nothing but two big rocks in Mecca, right? And then
aren't they piles of rocks? Aren't they piles of rocks?
They're big rocks. Each of them is a big rock. They're not piles of rocks, but they are big rocks. Is that what you're looking? I can bring up. Let me bring up a picture. Why not just bring up a picture? That way, everybody has a visual, and we can see. Because I did everything else. I do PowerPoints. I have any other reason. And I'll tell you the reason why I do PowerPoints is because I'm a very visual person myself. For an example, let me just give you a great example. How do we know that Mecca did not exist in the 7th century? Well, it's because there's no archaeological evidence for it. Okay, that's easy enough. That's easy enough to demonstrate. So, should we find archaeological evidence in Mecca? Excuse me. Let's see here. Window. There we are. Yes, we should. But here's the problem. In Mecca, they've done a huge building project right here. Look at it right here. A huge building project. And they're building all these skyscrapers all around the Kaaba. Here's the Kaaba right here. If you can't see that, that's the Kaaba right in the middle of everything. And when they build these skyscrapers, look what they have to do. You have to dig down into the earth in order to lay the foundation for these skyscrapers. Okay. Well, while digging down into the earth, you would, if this is 4,000, if Ishmael and Abraham rebuilt this sucker 4,000 years ago, you should have 4,000 years of artifacts right here. 4,000 years of artifacts somewhere, anywhere around in and around the Kaaba. How many artifacts have they unearthed, discovered in and around the Kaaba that date back to 2000 BC? None. How about 500 BC? None. How about 200 AD? None. How about 600 AD? None. How about 632 AD? None. They have found nothing. I'm not digressing. But anyway, what I'm saying is that if you disprove the existence of Mecca at that time, then you can throw Islam out with the water. Now I'm trying to find this file. Found it right here. Right here. I'm going to go ahead and present this. Share screen. Come on, I gotta click that window. Okay, right here. Now, what should we find in Mecca? Where is it? I gotta show it on the screen. There we go. Okay. Right here. Whoa, right here, it talks about olive trees. We should find olive trees there. But that's not what I was looking for, was it? That's not what I was looking for. I was looking for Safa and Marwa. Rad, why didn't you keep me on task here? Rad, what are you doing? Okay.
I'm driving.
You're not helping me here, brother. I'm trying. I'm
driving. I'm driving, so you can't hear me. So I'm driving in the rain.
Don't get another ticket. You and your tickets. You're gonna be in jail before it's all over. With that one guy that was who was it that was made that big deal out of you being in jail? Was that Marshall or was that Charles? Or was it both? Maybe it was all three.
Anyway. It was Charles, but I wasn't the pedophile they accused me of. So yeah.
Yeah, that's right. I remember that. Okay. Let's see here. Here is a Zamzam well. Okay, Safa and Marwa. The two mountains Hagar ran in between. Okay, here's Safa. Here's Marwa. What do I got here? They're 450 feet apart. So that'd be about a football field and a half. I think I was right on that. Safa is 65 feet tall. Marwa is 75 feet tall. They're not mountains like they're supposed to be. They're just rocks. So those are the rocks. Let me see if they have pictures of the, doggone it. I thought I had the inside or the picture. Let me see if I can find a picture of the rocks of Safa and Marwa. Safa, Marwa rocks. Let's go ahead and do that. Images. Okay, Safa. Nope. That's okay. Here we go. Let me share screen. Don't show me this warning again. I'm getting tired of it. Okay, so I typed in, asking for pictures of Safa and Marwa. And this is what they come up with. These are people, so it's not a pile of rocks. It looks like it's just one big rock. I'm not sure what this is. Uncovering that's not Safa and Marwa because there's nothing covering it. It's inside. That's not Safa and Marwa. Here we are. Here's one. Safa and Marwa. Top of it. So what they've done is they built over the top of it so the people going on these pilgrimages, the Hajj, they don't die of heat stroke on the 130-degree weather that they have there in Mecca, Saudi Arabia. Okay, enough of that. Hide from straight. Okay, but the point that I was making, back to the point. If you can demonstrate that the geography from the Quran, from the Sira, and from the Hadith literature does not line up with what we have in Mecca today, then that discredits the idea that Mecca is is as ancient as Muslims claim it is. And that's why we're going to constantly go after it and educate people on. Isa's the same as Yeshua. No. Who is this? Scam from the Red Sea. I got to read these things here. Poop shape. What do you, Nico? Stay out of that. Okay. Plan. Let's see here. Okay, this one right here. If I understand correctly, Isa is the same as Yeshua with drops and letters. No, this is not true. This is absolutely not true. Yeshua, if you translate that into Arabic, it is Yasu. It is not Isa. Isa. This is the problem with the Quran. It doesn't even have the right Jesus. They call him Isa. That's not even a correct translation of the word. And they don't even have the right mom. In chapter 3, if you look at chapter 3, the mother of Isa is Miriam, who is the sister of Aaron, which would make her the sister of Moses, which would make
not only that, Aaron, but they're calling Jesus the one whom God hates. You see that? So the name that they're calling Jesus is Esau, the one whom God hates.
Oh yeah,
right?
Right. Yeah, that's true. This is true. The one that God hates is Esau, brother of Jacob. Yeah. There you go, right there. Okay, so I think we're going to leave the Mecca thing alone for now. We've kind of beat that one over the head. Next week, we'll be talking about something else that deals with why Mecca cannot have existed in the 7th century. This basically shows you that its description is incorrect. I think next week I'll go over some of the ancient literature that that was written in and around Mecca that never mentions it. I mean, you have all kinds of armies marching through that place, explorers going in and around that place, and none of them mention this mother of all cities, Mecca. Yeah, thanks for, see, I'm back. Yep, we're back at it again. And I'm going to tell you, I'll tell you, here's the reason why, what made up my mind. There was a video that David Wood did a couple weeks ago, and I don't remember the lady's name. She was from the UK, and she wasn't very old. She was a single mother, and she was a very popular YouTuber, evidently, and she had been threatened by Muslims for trying to improve the community, make the community better. And in the process of doing that, she provided some criticisms of Islam or Muslims. And so she was threatened. And it's, I mean, this poor girl, I was a lady, I mean, late 20s, maybe early 30s, I don't know how old she is. She's crying because she can no longer go on YouTube because these people are threatening her. And I'm thinking, you know what? If you're going to threaten somebody and try to silence somebody, I'm going to talk out about it. I can't do it sitting out in my garage, woodworking or whatever. So I got to get back in here. I got to sit down. I got to do show prep. I got to get things ready, do some work on this and get back into that. And I'm not going to let that kind of stuff slide anymore. I've been sitting here listening to it for 3 months, especially this Muhammad hijab deal. I'm sure you're all, everybody knows what's going on with that piece of garbage. I mean, here you have, let me just say this about this. I think that Muhammad hijab is following Islam. He's not wrong if he's following Islam. If he is going to have a second wife, if he is going to lie to that first wife, if he is going to lie to that second wife, he's just following Islam. He's trying to cover his tracks today because it's 2025. It isn't, the 7th century Arabia, where, if your wife, disobeys you, you just slap her around and, you should, you can control her. So things are a little bit different today, and he's finding it a little bit harder to follow the true Islam. And I also attribute some of the fault to Aisha, because she should have known. I mean, here you're think about what this girl's doing here. She is having an affair with this. He's married. You're living in the West, and he's married, young lady. And he's having.
Well, that's the thing, Eric.
And you're what?
That's the thing, Eric. He's following Islam. She's actually the one that's at fault here. He is following Islam. She is not following Islam because she's speaking out. She was supposed to be the secret wife. The thing about being a secret wife is you keep it secret. You don't tell the whole internet about it. That's kind of a violation. Pimping 101. Just saying. But no, if you listen to her video, she's like, he promised me a real marriage. That we were going to raise a family. It was going to be great. As a no, what do you mean? You're going to be stealing from the first wife, who should be biblically his wife, stealing from her kids to support you and your child. And any children that he may have. No, she's totally in the wrong. But as she says in her commentaries, well, I go by the Islamic ethos. So this is perfectly Islamic. She admits it. Then what are you complaining about? Right. Anyway, that's all I wanted to say on that.
I appreciate it. Yeah, but see, this is Muhammad Hijab is just following Islam. He's following the tenets of Islam.
Yeah. Do you guys have the moli, the black moli with the chocolate sauce?
Okay, I don't think Brad wanted us to listen to that. Okay, so Muhammad Hijab is following the tenets of Islam. He has a second wife. He can get a third wife. He can even get a fourth wife if he wants to. But here's the problem. He's a scumbag for doing it. And if you are following the tenets of Islam, you're a scumbag for doing it. If you are doing this and treating women like this, you're a scumbag. That's just the way it is. If Muhammad's sunnah is making you a scumbag, that should at least, at a minimum, give you pause as to whose teachings you're following. If you are running around on your first wife and keeping a second wife a secret, and then mistreating and not provide, because I think the Quran is pretty clear. I'm not sure if it is or not, but I mean, does it not say that you're supposed to provide equitably? If you're going to have more than one wife, you have to provide equitably for each wife. Having a wife meet you in a hotel room once a week, once a month, or whatever he's doing, and calling it marriage is not marriage. That's just having a piece on the side is all you're doing. And you're committing adultery. And if you're committing adultery, you don't try to justify it or receive some special revelation like Muhammad did when he was caught sleeping with Mary the Copt in Hafsa's bed. How dare you? How did that verse go? Where the verse says something on the effect that, Muhammad, I'm giving you these things. How dare you make promises to your wife that you're not going to enjoy what I've given you? If you believe that guy's a prophet and he actually received that message from Allah, you're an idiot. You really are. And your mind has been bent sideways by this ideology. So when we see Muhammad Hijab doing these things to this woman, and I feel for her. I mean, if you're getting scammed by this guy because he's just trying to get his jollies off of you, and you're falling for it, I do feel some pity for you. But you went in this with your eyes wide open, knowing that he had a first wife. Now, my question would be, is how are things going with that first wife, with Muhammad Hijab right about now? See, this is the natural order of things. This is how God created us. He created us one man for one man and one woman. A man shall leave his mother and his father and cleave to the wife, and two shall become one flesh. It teaches us that in Genesis, and it teaches that, and Christ taught that. And then all of a sudden, Muhammad comes along and it says you got 4 or 5 fleshes. No. So when you have unnatural relations like this, you need to repent. If you've committed adultery, the Bible teaches you very clearly. I mean, David committed adultery, and look at God forgave him. He repented in sackcloth and ashes. Come on, Capper, you got this. And God forgave him. If you committed adultery, ask God for forgiveness, repent, turn away from that sin, do not do it again, but don't try to justify it. And this is what Islam does. Lubda, is that her? Okay, I think, yeah, thanks. Ed, Protestant believer. Man, it's good to see you guys back in the chat too. You know, I enjoy reading. I see Steve made it. You know, all you guys, Elizabeth, Nico. I'm going to leave some to Bill. And I always Villainous. I always say want to say villainous, and it's Villainous. He's here quite a bit. Rob K's been here. Look at you guys. Yeah, it's good to see everybody back. We're going to try to do this more often, at least once a week on Tuesdays. And I was watching YouTube today, and it's like everybody has a stream on Tuesday. But our friend Rad says Tuesdays are the days we're going to do it. Last time it was Mondays, and I messed that up. But anyway, the time in the middle of the week is clear for me now because my grandkids don't have softball and baseball because their season's over, and weekends are tied up because they're in travel ball, and that's where I'll be going. I'll be going on the weekends, and so we're going to try to do this. And I found that you know when you do these types of things, it's best to try to be consistent, have a consistent day and a consistent time, so you're dependable, and people, you know, they say, oh, okay, well, the Theckerfer's on at such and such a time. We can do that. They may have a trophy. What are you guys talking about here? I can't keep up with this. Okay. All right. I got a video from an imam that I want to show you. He goes by the name of Nick Pelletier. And Nick Pelletier is, well, let me just play it. Play what he's got to say here, and then we'll try to discuss it. Let me put him up on the stream and tell me if you can hear this. Okay, can you guys hear that? Somebody in chat, Rad, anybody? Could you guys hear that? Let me play it again. No sound. Okay, so I suck. Let's go ahead and X out of that and try it again. Let's see if we can do this again. Also share tab audio. Yep. Okay, that's what I want to do. And let's try it again.
And why are they showing up in my feed? I promise you this is not.
Okay, so could you hear that? Could you guys hear that? Yes, good. All right, thanks, Ed. All right, here we go. All right. Oh, first off, let me do this. No, let's not do that because I'll screw it up. Let's start off with just.
Some of you may be asking, who is this and why are they showing up in my feed? I promise you this is not what this page is about or going to be about, but this is something that I've been burdened with and have been wanting to get off of my chest for the past 5.5 years. In the fall of 2018, I was working as an imam and the director of outreach for the Islamic Center of Irving, one of the largest Islamic centers in the country. While I was on.
Okay, so let's make sure we understand this. This guy was an imam, one of the main imams at the third largest, he says one of the largest, is the third largest Islamic center in the country in Irving, Texas. This is a...
So, wait, Irving, Texas or Irvine, California?
No, it's Irving, Texas.
So he wasn't an imam in Houston then?
Not in Houston,
okay.
No.
Okay.
No, not in Houston. let's see here. What are we doing here? No, I said that and it is in the Quran. That has an issue with the other. Okay. All right. Let's. Okay. So he's the third largest mosque in the United States. So this guy's a big deal. He's going to tell you a little about his bio. He lived in Saudi Arabia for 7 years and has a master's degree, I think a master's, perhaps a PhD, from the Medina University, which is one of the most prestigious Islamic universities in the world. So this guy's no slouch, just so we're saying. Okay, so he's on vacation in Colorado. He's probably skiing. I was probably skiing with this guy from Breckenridge. Skiing out there. Anyway, let's listen to what he says.
I was on vacation in the mountains of Colorado. I received multiple missed phone calls from a community member, and upon returning, they stated that they urgently needed to speak with me. After returning from vacation, I met with him on that Thursday, and he explained to me how he witnessed an elderly man inappropriately touching a child at the center. And when he got up to confront the man, he ran away. Later that day or the next, the community member witnessed a teenager threatening the same old man for touching his younger brother. The community member explained how the confrontation was stopped, and that he, along with the older brother of the victim, family members of the perpetrator, met with members of the board to discuss the situation.
Okay. Now, this situation that he's talking about occurred 5.5 years ago. So this would have been 2019, 2018 timeframe. So, what is this? One can have a PhD and still be stupid as Jumrat. Yes. Yeah, I agree 100%. Okay, so this happened about 5.5 years ago. He's just coming forward now with what happened. But people knew at the time what happened. So you have a child being assaulted by an older gentleman that attends the mosque. He's being confronted with it. And listen to what this guy does to these kids. This is sick.
During this meeting, the events were discussed, and the board members were presented with a picture of the victim who had a golf ball-sized bruise on his cheek from where the old man was forcibly sucking on it. In some twisted manner, either by fear, manipulation, or incredible stupidity, it was agreed that this matter would be squashed and that the family would be given a few days to get the elderly man back to Pakistan. After being informed of the situation, I requested as much evidence as I could from the witness, who also provided me with the picture which showed the clear evidence of the abuse.
Okay, so you have a Pakistani man attending this mosque, and he assaults this child by going up to him and sucking on his face, which leaves it, it's like he says it's a bruise. I'm assuming it's like a hickey, where if you're sucking on the skin, it will create a bruising type appearance. So I'm thinking that this old man is giving these kids hickeys. Okay, so let's see what happens here. Now, this is the third largest mosque in the United States, and some of the most important, influential imams, sheikhs, mullahs, or whatever you want to call them, go to this mosque, or at least are related to it. I can think of one, Yasakari. Think of another one, that Suleiman guy that's all over Instagram, that I see his crap on Instagram all the time. So let's listen to what they have to say.
It just so happened that the following day would be our congregational prayers, for which I was scheduled to deliver the sermon. The next morning, I went directly to the police department, where I reported everything that I knew. I then went to the Islamic Center, where I delivered the sermon, which subsequently went viral, exposing the issue to the community and denouncing the actions of the board. After my sermon, the president of the institution grabbed the microphone to calm everyone down. He explained how he appreciated me and my efforts to bring these types of issues to the attention of the community. He confirmed that they knew of this incident and that they did their own investigation, that they brought it to the attention of the parents who did not want to inform the police.
Okay, so it goes to the cops, says this is what happened. We had some old scumbag within our congregation sucking on the face of one of the kids, and it's more than that. He's going to explain what more there is to this. And then he comes back to the mosque. He's scheduled to preach, so he gives the sermon and outs this guy, says this is what happened. Now, presumably, they were supposed to have had some type of board meeting to try to, how to best handle this, and they didn't. But they're trying to sweep this under the rug. Now, he goes on later in the video, and he mentions something about the Catholic Church. Again, making sure we understand this. Nobody, and I mean nobody, is going to justify the abuses that have occurred historically in the Catholic Church. Nobody's going to do it. Nobody would ever do that. No thinking person. But yet, here in the third largest mosque in the United States, they're thinking about it.
He tried to state how this was just a big misunderstanding and how I didn't have all of the information, and so it didn't exactly happen the way that I had related it. This narrative was later used as part of the smokescreen to present the idea that this was just some sort of cultural misunderstanding.
How many cultures are there where old men go up to young boys and suck on their face?
He stated how there would be no repercussions against me for bringing this issue to the community. My sermon, along with his reaction, were all streaming live and uploaded to both Facebook and YouTube. It was almost immediately deleted.
What? You're going to delete his preaching? Heretics!
And then miraculously uploaded again to a community activist organization's Facebook page called Face. It was then put into a shortened and condensed version which went viral on Facebook, and then the full version again was uploaded on YouTube.
We need to find that video.
Okay, you're the pro at that. You're the one that can find stuff. I mean,
go ahead.
Yeah, find it. The condensed version. So in other words, they took down the video that was on the mosque site, and then somebody had caught it and downloaded it and then re-uploaded it to Facebook and YouTube, and then it went viral. Oops, don't you just hate it when, what do they call that? The Streisand effect or something of those lines? Anyway, here we go. Listen to what they do to this guy.
The next day I was put on administrative leave and I was told not to come back to the center. After about 2 months, eventually I was told to come back to the center, but that I was to stay in my office and to not interact with the community. After a short period of time, I was told that I no longer had to come into work. I was officially let go and my contract expired.
Okay, so he is essentially fired from his job. He's told, you can come after 2 months. What is he, a teacher? You get to take 2 months off, not have to work at all? What the heck's going on with you? And then when he does come back to work, they said, sit in your office, don't talk to anybody. And then after a while, what was it, a month? I no longer had to come back. I had to go to, let's see, after a short period of time, I was told I no longer had to come back to work and I was officially let go. So he is fired. I'm trying to get this to, here we go. All right.
Was needed was a fire hose. Unfortunately, the Muslim community was more concerned with saving face than doing the right thing. Notable Muslim leaders and organizations were silent, and some of your most beloved so-called leaders actively tried to get me to go along to get along. A hit piece was put out against me on muslimmatters.org. I was attacked in the comment sections of social media posts and on podcasts on YouTube. All because we don't want people to think bad of us, even if it came at the expense of truth and justice.
Okay, so I went to this muslimmatters.org. Let me see here. muslimmatters.org. And I'm afraid to switch the screens around, but if you go to muslimmatters.org, I think what we ought to do is have a weekly visit to, where did Rad go? Did I lose Rad? Go there weekly and pull something off, some random article or whatever, and just kind of go through it. We used to do that on the show with, what was the website? Ask a Muslim I think it was Ask a Muslim. And I called the section that we did it why, or don't ask a Muslim, but just ask a Muslim and, whatever general question people do. And if we look at how they respond. So I think we're going to do that with Muslim Matters. Just pull up a random article once a week and see what they do. Okay, so where are we? 321, and I need to go to 325. Let me go back here. Whoa, right there's good.
In this situation, but I'm referring to the so-called Muslim leadership, specifically those most prominent figures who resided locally and met with me privately with other individuals to encourage me to make up with the board and continue on as normal. To this day, I find it absolutely absurd that you have individuals that do everything in their power to get in the spotlight, to get on TV, to be the spokespeople for the Muslim community.
Okay, how many imams do we know that do this? That's all they do, is they try to get their faces out there on TV. They try to get their faces out there in the spotlight. One big one from Houston really comes to mind. But the odd thing is that we have not heard, I don't know, maybe somebody in the chat, has anybody heard what's happened to the Imam Kenny Bomer lately? Because I've checked his channel and he hasn't put up a video in quite some time since that incident where he was going to whip that black Olympian athlete with his belt in that store, that grocery store. I think that was last fall. I can't remember when that was. Yeah, Islamic Awareness is run by Dawa Gandis. This is Muslim. What was this? This is Muslim Matters. This isn't Islamic Awareness. This is something. Yeah, Islamic Awareness. The Islamic Awareness, I'll tell you, the thing about Islamic Awareness, I use, it's back. I use, what was I going to say? I've gone to their website when they started talking about the, I think it's the Sana manuscript. Yeah, it's the Sana manuscript. It's the oldest manuscript that we have of the Quran, and how they've carbon-14 dated it. And as you all know, most of you probably know, if you watch the show, you probably know, it's a palimpsest. So there's underwritings, and the underwritings don't match the overwritings, which kind of matches the Quran that we have today. So the first Quran does not match the Quran we have today. And on Islamic Awareness, it even gives you the dates that how it was carbon-14 dated, and it dates it back to, are you ready for this? 388. AD. Yes, you heard that right. 388 AD, carbon dating of the Sana manuscript. That just is a smidge off from what we know about when the Quran was written. The Quran wasn't written until, what was it, 651 with Uthman? Yep, there you go. Yep. They were church hymns. Very good. Why would you say that? You think no. Ed, I wouldn't. I don't know. Maybe he is, but he has been very quiet. I'll agree with that. All right, let's get back to the show. Okay, so they're talking about these very prominent leaders that are not being very prominent. Let's see here. We're at 350 right here.
Yet when something like this, of this magnitude, happens in their backyard, they were absolutely silent. It was all just a cultural misunderstanding. Nothing to see here. And Nick was just kind of a loose cannon anyway. After these events unfolded, I disappeared. The community was allowed to believe whatever they wanted to believe.
Okay, when this guy says he disappeared. He got deep six. This guy was, he'll tell you in the video that he was out selling, going door to door, became a door-to-door salesman. I was homeless, having to sleep him and his family sleeping on the floor. Yeah. Okay, let's go ahead and fast forward this to 426. I think we go right there. That ought to do it.
Honestly, I just really want to move on, but I feel like I have to address these issues just for the very purpose of getting it off of my chest.
Here we go.
For this reason, I want to address several points that were made by the larger community that were used to defame me and to sweep this issue under the rug. First and foremost is that I did the right thing. There's absolutely nothing that you can say or quote to make me feel otherwise. I have many regrets about my life, but that is not one of them. No God-fearing person thinks that child molestation should be swept under the rug, squashed, or handled in-house.
Well, Nick, I would refer you back to your own scriptures and a couple hadith. I don't know. You ever hear of somebody called Aisha? Yeah, and when you're 53 years old and you are engaging in intercourse with a 9-year-old, we would call that child molestation. So I'm going to have to disagree with you on this one, even though we can make the argument that this was, 7th century, practice, which it wasn't, because there has never been a culture where a 53-year-old man would wed a 9-year-old prepubescent little girl. Never, ever, 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 never been in any culture. Okay, let's. I digress. Sorry.
Or any of the other demented ideas that people foolishly came up with. Do you think that anyone in America would agree that if molestation is suspected in a school where their child attends, that it should just be left for the board to do their own investigation without alerting the authorities or the community? Maybe in some other country, but not here.
So true. I would tell you that if you as a teacher suspect that a child is being abused at home, if you have a reasonable suspicion, you're required to report it. You are required. You don't have to report it to the student. You don't call the parents up yourself, but there is a step process within the school system that you have to follow if you believe that there is some type of abuse going on, especially if it is sexual in nature. Molestation is one that they do not play games with. I've had to deal with this specifically with one of my students. I'm not going to get into the details, and I'll tell you, it is, when you get the parent in there and you confront the parent with that, it is really flippin' ugly. And that dad was, I'm just going to tell you, it was. So something like this, it gets ugly, and it gets ugly real fast because they'll do anything. These child molesters will do anything to get out of the accusation, and they'll lie to you straight to your face. And unfortunately, this guy was Pakistani, and he just got out of the country. Okay.
But of course, then they bring up the idea that, well, it wasn't exactly molestation, which brings up the second point, which was utilized in this hit piece on muslimmatters.org, which was that this was just a cultural misunderstanding. The idiots that made this claim, and those who fell for it, want you to believe that at that point in time, with my 14 years of experience in the Muslim community, working in an official capacity as a public affairs coordinator, as a director of outreach, and as an imam for a community that was predominantly from the Indian subcontinent, and with 7.5 years living in the Arab world.
I would say he's got a lot of credibility here. Just me thinking. He's got a lot of bona fides.
That I wouldn't know the difference between a cultural peck on the cheek and grabbing a child by his crotch and forcefully sucking on his face until you left bruises.
Okay. What did this guy do to this child? Now, this is, and he's going to go on to explain that this is not an isolated incident. He would grab the boys by their crotches and suck on their faces. And the board, the Islamic board for the third largest mosque in the United States, tried to sweep it under the rug as some type of cultural misunderstanding, don't you see? You just don't understand the culture in Pakistan, which very well may be true. That might be what old scumbag men do to little boys in Pakistan. But you're in Irving, Texas, dude, and you can't allow that to happen. If it does happen, you are by law required to report it. And they didn't. All right, let's go on.
Let me make this very clear for the author of that article and those who put him up to it. The man was grabbing children's crotches and kissing them on the face. This particular instance, he sucked on the boy's face until he left a bruise. This is not some cultural misunderstanding. I find it disgusting that I have to even explain this to you. The leaders of the community had access to this information. I wouldn't doubt that you had it as well. And if you didn't, you could have easily accessed it from me, but you never reached out. And the reason for that is obvious. You weren't seeking the truth. You were trying to cover for one of your own.
Okay, so a couple things that I want to say about this. So you have this guy sucking on the face of a little boy. Now, and I'm, you know, just every time you do stuff, like you get back into this show and you start talking about this, it just grosses you out. Some of the things that go on in this faith system, because we could point to hadith. Maybe somebody would want to look this up in the chat, but was there not a hadith? I know there's a hadith out there where Muhammad has a little boy jump into his lap and then he sticks his tongue in his mouth.
Yep. He allowed the little boy to suck on his tongue. He's so compassionate.
Yeah.
What a great thing.
So I could easily say, if somebody wants to show that, they got a lot going on in chat right now. If they want, if we were to show that this guy was just following Sunnah, if we technically wanted to get down to it, right? He's just following the Sunnah of the Prophet. He's just sticking his mouth. I know what the heck. It's sick. It's gross. It's sick, and it just makes you. I don't know. Golly. All right.
I find it a travesty that you're an imam anywhere, and abhorrent that anyone would entrust you with their children. There were pictures. I still have them. The board had them. Community members had them. Yet your leaders, who seem to find their nose into everything that can gain them publicity, were absolutely silent.
Yep, there you go. They're keeping their mouths shut, and they're trying to paper over this whole ordeal. Okay, this next one is kind of long, so just stay with me on this, please. This is about a minute long.
My third point. How do you know that this was an isolated incident? Well, you don't. The only way you find out is by letting the community know, not by sweeping it under the rug. But ICI thought that they were going to play Sherlock Holmes and Law and Order all in one meeting. Case closed, nothing to see here. But I ask you, when? When does one of these sickos go after just one child? The next day after my sermon, I was at the Islamic Center, and I was on the phone with my headset, speaking to another graduate of the Islamic University of Medina, so there was a witness to this conversation. An Arab man approached me, pulled me aside, and said, "Thank you. I want to thank you for what you did. That was my son." I immediately told him that you should go to the police and report the incident. You don't want this to turn out to be a bigger issue, and then people are looking at you saying, "Why weren't you protecting your child?" We agreed to go to the police station after the prayer, so I picked him and his son up from his house, and we drove to the Irving Police Department where he made a report. On the way to the police station, I asked the young boy about his older brother in the meeting with the board. He was confused and didn't know what I was talking about, and I reiterated the question, and I said, your older brother, he met with the board to discuss what happened, and they agreed to squash everything. The young boy said to me, "I don't have an older brother." Have you figured it out yet? This isn't the same kid. It's
okay. So he's right there. He does not have an older brother. He's dealing with somebody else now. So that means that this was not an isolated incident. This means that this had gone on with other kids at this Islamic center. Now think about that. The board has to know that this is going on. He had just found out about it because he stumbled into it because one of the congregants, I don't know what you call him, called him about it. So this is bad. All right, let's go to 847 point number 7. I think it is 4. Here we go.
But let's be clear, you didn't want to know. You just wanted to cover up for one of your own. Point number 4 is that I did this the wrong way. I shouldn't have exposed this situation in a sermon. Now, a lot of people would like to theorize about what they would have done in certain situations had they been in them. But let's be clear, the vast majority of people would have done nothing. As I said before, I have no regrets. And here's a principle that you should get used to that I live by. You don't complain about how somebody does the job that you neglect to do. I should have never been in that position in the first place. I should have come home from vacation, found out what had happened and how the board did the right thing, and then congratulated them in my sermon about how that's what you're supposed to do. As for the sanctity of the sermon, the community tolerates gobbledygook sermons week in and week out about random topics that don't even make sense, politics, or fundraising for some obscure organization that's going to misuse the funds anyway. And
did you catch that? He's saying that these sermon, he comes back and he preaches a sermon, people thank him, and then the rest of the sermons are a bunch of bull crap about politics or, people in their fundraising that they know the people are going to misspend the money and they're going to go out and abuse the system. This guy, I could see why they deep sixed him. I mean, this guy, he's telling it like it is. Okay. He's got a couple more points. Let's go to point number 7 at the 15-minute mark here. 15-minute mark. 15:06:25. Here we go.
Gonna not act because I'm afraid of how you will think it will reflect on me because of who you think I associate with. Point number 7, that I made Muslims look bad. Well, if your Islam is grabbing children's crotches and sucking on their face or covering up for those who do, I didn't make you look bad. I merely put a mirror in front of you. And the mirror doesn't make you look bad. It just shows you who you are. And I have nothing to do with whatever version of Islam that is. You want to make Muslims look good? You should have done the right thing. You should have said something. You should have done something. My Islam doesn't care how you think or how anybody else thinks it looks. You had the opportunity to do the right thing. One of my best friends from college, who's a Roman Catholic and knows a thing or two about this sort of stuff, said to me, man, you served up your community a grand slam, and they struck out. This is an issue that anyone with even the slightest bit of cultural context in our country knows, especially because of the history of what happened in the Catholic Church, that we do not tolerate this stuff, and we do.
Well, obviously, your mosque did, because they fired you for bringing it up. And I am afraid, I'm almost afraid to go looking and to see how many other places and children are affected by this. It would be almost scary to do that, knowing that something this blatant is going on in the 3rd largest mosque in the United States, and they would do something to you. And I'm not saying that you're all that in a bag of chips, but what I am saying is that you're obviously a well-respected Muslim within the, you're a revert. You have a degree from the University of Medina, advanced degree from the University of Medina. You held some very important positions, and now they fire you. Yeah, this is going on. What, Red? Go ahead.
You got the clip where he talks about when he was trapped in the office and the security guard kept asking him about, did they name names?
Yeah,
that clip?
I got that. Let's see here.
Okay.
Yep.
That goes the way you were talking about. Yeah. Okay, cool. I just want to make sure.
Yeah, let's see here. Let me go to point number 8 here. Yeah, let's go to point number 8 at 7:44. Wait, I'm at 17:44. So, okay, here we go.
Affected by it. Point number 8, your so-called leaders and their deafening silence. And I want to be very, very clear about something. When I say leaders, I'm not talking about the board of the Islamic Center. I'm talking about all of your celebrity imams that were noticeably silent, and I'm talking about all of your major organizations that were noticeably silent. Out of all of the so-called leaders across the country, there were only 3 people, to my knowledge, who said anything to my defense. That was Shadid Muhammad, Joe Bradford, and Shfindim. Where were all the big shots? Abstaining like a vote in the Security Council, as if this is one we don't want to touch? Well, I can tell you some of your favorites just wanted me to go along to get along, right there in Irving. It happened right in their backyard, yet they had nothing to say. Funny how they're quick to do a photo op or chase any other opportunity to get themselves on CNN.
Yep. It's all about getting you out there and getting the followers, the hits, all those things. Now, this next one that I wanted to show you, and I'm going to go looking for that other one, Brad. I'm going to have to find it. I did not have that. Let's see here. Let's see. You don't alert them. This one, 2041. Let's just go to 2041 and listen to what this guy says here. Okay.
And organizational corruption of many of these organizations. These individuals deserve no further opportunity to protect themselves, and they're not the type of people that you cooperate with. Years after I left, these very same board members deleted thousands of emails and dozens of hours of video from the security cameras, yet your leaders thought that I should go work with these people?
Okay, so what was happening with the emails? They were emailing each other, going back and forth, trying to figure out how to cover it up. And the security cameras, this old scumbag would lure these kids out into the hallways, where he thought there was no security cameras, and that's where he would molest them. Or they had it on security cam, and they deleted the videos. That is a crime. If you are deleting evidence that that clearly shows a child being molested, then that is criminal. I'm trying to find, let's see here, obviously moved across the country, no money, somebody sleeping on the floor, opportunities, actually cause, the amount of people reached out, check, even though that's a good time to reach out. I haven't watched one, check and ship, digital spiritual point, spiritual smallest. God, forgive me the greatest mistakes. Kevin Medina, come on, a negative, and the numbers phased out. In fact, I'm trying to find it, guys. I'm sorry. Existed, screaming at the top of my lungs, entire life, point, people journey. I tell you what I'm going to do. I'm going to bring up the transcript here, and I'll just find it. I will search for it. Search, let's see here, review, editor, search, security. No, that's not how you do it. How do you search comments, share, editing, share? What a rookie. Come on. Where do I find the search bar, the search within the text?
You don't. You gotta copy up all the text in the transcript, put it in a Word document.
I have it in a Word document. Zoom.
Control F.
Control what?
Control F. F as in, yeah, I think, yeah.
F is in Foxtrot?
Yes. F is in Foxtrot.
Oh, there we go. Okay. Thank you. No, that's not the right word. Security. Set one off the security guard. Here we go. Oh, wow. That was back at the 11-minute mark. Okay, so let's see. I was confronted by. So let's go back to 10:53. All right. Got it. Thank you. I'm sorry. I missed it. 10:53. I'm sorry. But listen to this. This is very telling.
The community knew that's not what happened, and the leadership knew that that's not what happened. In the afternoon of the day that I went to the police station with the second victim, after the afternoon prayer, I was confronted by about 24 angry members of the congregation who were upset with my actions. Unfortunately, the confrontation got to the point where I told the security guard that he needed to call the police. Now, I sat in my office.
Listen to this. This is important.
Waiting with the security guard until the police arrived and the whole situation was diffused. But while I was in my office with this security guard, he kept pressing me. And at the time, I didn't think much of it, but he kept asking me, do you know who the perpetrator was? Did they tell you who it was? Now, this security guard was actually on the board, and his role was being in charge of youth activities. Now, the
security guard's role at the Islamic Center, the third largest Islamic center in the United States, he's in charge of youth activities at the third largest Islamic center in the United States. The security guard keeps quizzing him. He's protecting him because there's a mob of people out there that want to give him a beat down for what he did or what he said. But the security guard keeps asking him, do you know who the perpetrator is? Now, the security guard might be looking to arrest lead the investigation of the perpetrator or whatever, but no. Listen to what he says.
Disturbing part of this was after I was let go, this guy was actually arrested for aggravated sexual assault in a completely unrelated case. I was worried about the angry mob outside of my office. I had no idea that this guy was really concerned that they had found him out. Now, I will never know this.
Okay, so folks, did you catch that? So not only are they deleting the videos, not only are they deleting emails, the security guard that's protecting him from this mob, and he did his job, got to give him that, but he sits on the board of the mosque. Also sitting on the board, his position at the mosque is he's in charge of the youth programs. Now, this mosque brings in I looked it up, it brings in about 30,000 people a week. 3,000 people. That's a lot of people, folks. I know the church that I go to, we're lucky if we have 120 a week. And you're going to put me, if you put me in charge of the youth, I'm in charge of Sunday school, but if we had like a youth leader, and the youth leader was found out that they were molesting kids, our church would be on the front page of every newspaper in Kafiristan for the foreseeable future. Why is this not a big? Because they know that if you bring this up, that you're going to be called an Islamophobe. How dare you talk about Muslims like that? They have
There's another clip.
Go ahead.
There's another clip where it talks about the father that he talked to going to the police. Did you play that one? Or do you have that clip? Where he said it's like, he forced me to eat pork.
Yeah, it was like he felt shame. Yeah, the father came back to Nick Peltier, the imam here, and said, look, I've caught all kinds of flack for going to the police on this. His wife worked at the Islamic Center school, and it's made him feel like he's had, that was a euphemism, though. That wasn't actually making him eat pork. That was...
No, well, I'm thinking the euphemism, by going to the police, pigs, it was like you forced me to eat pork. So no, this guy's an SOB. He's a total bastard. I mean, here he is. He's reporting that his son's being molested by some creepy old guy. And then all of a sudden, because the community turns on him, he feels like he's the bad guy for protecting his son. And this is how low and scummy these people are. I'm sorry. This is just, you hand your kid over to a child molester? And, oh, my God. You know what I mean? It's just sick, dude.
Well, if you did this, again, this is if it's any school or any organization, period. Especially a religious organization, you have all of them vultures in the media that would jump on any opportunity to defame a church, a pastor, or the organization. Of course, they're going to do that, and they were not going to look to try to deep six it. They're going to try to bring it out. But since this, here's the point of bringing that up, that since this is an Islamic center, not just in any Islamic center, this is the third largest Islamic center in the entire country. And this kind of crap is going on. And this guy, why aren't people shouting this from the rooftops? Because they're afraid to being called Islamophobes. And this guy was dead center right in the middle of it. Dared to speak out against it, and look what they did to him. He lost all of his friends. He lost his job. They were home. His family was homeless. It ruined his life, and now he can't get a job within the Islamic community because why? Well, because he's a rat. Sad business. Yeah, and this is only about a 3 hour and 44-minute drive from Houston. So the idea that somebody down in Houston didn't know about this is probably far-fetched. Okay, let's go on to a couple news items, and then we'll call it a day. Let's see here. Let's get off of this. Let's get off this. Let's get off this. Off of this. Here, this one from one of the people that we all know. What am I going to do with this? How do I do this? I'm going to have to share. Our friend Yasser Qadhi. Why bring up Yasser Qadhi? Because he's running his mouth again. So let's hear what he has to say.
its parent organization back in the 1920s was literally the ideology, not an exaggeration, that inspired the version of Hitler. And that is why Hitler took the swastika, which is an Indian symbol. He took it because it came from this ideology. And we see this ideology manifested in multiple movements across this globe. And I want everyone to be aware of 3 such movements. The first of them, which is what is going on in India, is the Hindutva, which is a radical strand of Hinduism. This is not mainstream Hinduism. Hindutva is a strand of Hinduism that says this land is only for one nation, one group, one ideology, and that is those who follow their version of Hinduism.
Okay. What do you think is happening in Saudi Arabia today? What do you think is happening in Afghanistan, Pakistan, the Sudan? Let's say, take your pick, dude. For you to sit there and complain about Hindus defending their homeland, you're a hypocritical loser. I mean, seriously. Oh, why are you complaining about us coming in and trying to overpopulate your country, and then once we grab a majority, we're gonna outlaw Hinduism? Why would you want to fight that?
Number 2, the ideology of Zionism, which says that there's one race, one group for that land, and anyone who's not from that land does not belong.
Okay, Judaism transcends races. Why he would say, I get it. You can say that you're an ethnic Jew. I understand that, but it transcends race. To bring that up is just a shallow, cheap shot. And then to say that Zionism is what is it?
There, even if they've been there for 2,000 years. And the third strand.
Okay, so he's speaking out against Zionism. Now, what specifically is he crying about? He's probably crying about the people in Gaza not being able to practice enough apartheid, enough racism themselves. Did we hear any of that? Of course not. Now, what's the third strand? What do you feel?
And is one that is right here where we are living, and that is white nationalism.
Oh, white national. There you go. Hold on.
White nationalism is linked to Hindutva, and it is linked.
Okay, there's not too many white Hindus in India. How can it be linked
to Zionism?
It's not too many white guys in.
So don't be surprised when the leaders of all of these movements are shaking hands and cozying up, because it is the same ideology, even though ironically every ideology would not tolerate the others in their own land. This part.
Okay, so let's just Lord, how can somebody as educated as this man is sit there and make these claims with a straight face and not reek and choke on his own hypocrisy? How can you do that? Now, when we get to this Hindu Vista, whatever the heck it's called, I don't know anything about that. I didn't bother looking it up, and I could pretty much care less, because I know what's going on in India today. India is in a crisis where when the Muslims were kicked out, a certain percentage were allowed to stay, and that percentage that was allowed to stay was allowed to practice Islam, and they did. And in doing so, they were allowed to marry 4 wives. And since they've been allowed to marry 4 wives, they have outpopulated the Hindus in India rapidly. And in the same process, what they're going to do is they're going to become it's going to become a Muslim majority country. I don't know how many years down the road, but not too far down the road. Once that happens, what Muslim majority country will respect the rights, the minority rights of the Hindus in that country? None. So this party, I'm not exactly sure what it's about, is a bunch of bunk as far as I'm concerned. They're just sticking up for India. Now, the idea that Zionists have taken over Israel, this is the itty bitty country. out of the vast swath of countries, Muslim countries that surround it, and he wants to complain that they want to have their own capital. How many Jews live in Saudi Arabia today? Iraq, Iran, throughout North Africa, other places in the Middle East, the Near East, Pakistan, any of those places? If there is Jews living there, they're either living in hiding or they're a very tiny minority. They were all exiled when Israel became its own nation. They were kicked out. I know this personally because I've talked to them personally, that their parents and grandparents were kicked out because Israel became its own nation. They went to Israel. And now what Yasser Qadi is saying is that they shouldn't be in Israel. They have no right to Israel. Well, where are they supposed to go, Yasser? Back to Europe, where they didn't come from in the to begin with? What an idiot. And this idea of white nationalism, this is just another, racist trope that you would expect, that you should not expect by somebody as educated he is. But this is how far he has fallen. Look how far this guy has fallen. He was this well-respected Islamic teacher, and now he's out there trying to create this Sharia zone in this epic city in Texas. And we did a piece on him last fall, I think it was, where he's calling for jihad. We called him Jihadi Qadi. The guy has lost his mind. So we're going to do more pieces on Yasser Qadi, because this guy is not your everyday mainstream Muslim peaceful guy. This guy is he's a radical, is what he is. And I think we need to do a better job of calling him out for it.
Did you hear Shariaville got shut down?
I heard that they were investigating it. I didn't know how they were going to shut it down.
Well,
the specific
evidently, it's a pyramid scheme and all kinds of financial fraud going on. Like that one guy who said, you're going to raise money for weird ideas that are going to be misused. That's probably one of the things he was talking about. So, yeah. So, no, the whole thing is completely fraudulent on its face. And people will probably be going to jail for this, hopefully.
Well, what do you mean by a Ponzi scheme?
A pyramid scheme. So basically, they raise all this money, and then they use it to buy like a lot.
Right.
And then they take that money. I don't know how it's the way it's structured is totally legal. It's a pyramid or a Ponzi scheme. No, it's total fraudulently, and they've been looking at that angle for a while. They're ready to make some indictments, I guess. And the whole construction has totally stopped.
I'm not complaining that if he's being charged for that, I'm not complaining. But the idea of setting up a Muslim-free zone in the middle of Texas, that just seems illegal. I mean, if I had money, I would invest my own money and buy a lot and build a church right there.
That's what I would say. That's what Crescent should do. But if they refuse, then you got them on that. No, if they refuse to sell you the land, you know what I mean? Then
that's like equal opportunity. You cannot discriminate based on religion, race, religion, creed, or whatever when selling property. So they would, I don't know. I would think that there would be some churches out there, some Christians would pool their money, and then every Sunday morning start ringing them bells.
Well,
Hell's bells. ACDC, play a little ACDC on Sunday morning just to wake them up. Or have competing bells during the time of the call for prayer or something. I don't know, something just to say that you can't do this as America, and you can't do.
Well, we be having pig roast like God do every Sunday. We'd have a pig roast.
You have what? Oh, a pig roast.
Pig roast.
Yeah, Yepper. Okay, this is going to be the last one of the day. Last article of the day, I think. No, I tell you what. Let's do this one. Where'd it go? Hamza's Den. Let's do one on Hamza. My favorite little. Wait a second. I don't think I did that right. I'm sorry. I come on. Okay, for Hamza's Den. Show out of. Okay, here we go. Listen to Hamza running his mouth here. See how right he is.
If Hinduism is true, then Islam can't be true. But if Islam is true, then Hinduism can't be true. So we're going on the paradigm right now that is Islam true or not? So only one man in history claimed to come for you. That man was Muhammad, peace and blessing upon him. Not only did he say it, he demonstrated it by sending his messengers out to the Persian Empire, the Egyptians, and to Byzantium.
Okay, listen to what this leprechaun says.
Calling them to worship the God of Abraham. No other prophet did this. The people tried to argue that Jesus did this, but Jesus made it clear, I have not been sent but to the lost sheep of the house of Israel.
Okay, so did Jesus say that I have only been sent to the lost sheep or lost sheep of the house of Israel? Well, yes, he did. He did say that. Yeah, he did say that. But to
But not
say
all my sheep is not everyone from Israel is Israel. The only true people of Israel are from the woman of the promise, not the slave girl Hagar, which the Muslims claim to be from. So yeah,
I'm pointing to his. He's saying that Muhammad is the only one that sent word out to the world. He's full of crap. Has he not heard of the Great Commission? Go ye therefore and teach all. Go ye therefore and teach all disciples, baptizing them in the name, Go ye therefore and make disciples, baptizing them in the name of the Father, Son, and Holy Spirit. Go to Jerusalem, Judea, Samaria, and the most outer part. What is that, Matt? It's Matthew 28. Come on, Eric. Come on. I know this thing. You think that I would have this? I mean, I learned this when I was a child. Come on. Let's see here. The Great Commission. You worship seed. And okay. You say his disciples, guards report. Teaching. Okay, here we go. Then Jesus came to them and said, all authority in heaven and on earth has been given to me. Therefore, go and make disciples of all nations, baptizing them in the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit, and teaching them to obey everything that I have commanded you. And surely I am with you always, even unto the end of the age. So, you know, when you look at guys like this Hamza guy, he knows he's lying. And what we're going to do is we're going to make a point to point that out. I'm not going to be silent anymore. We're going to be here every week doing these shows, and we're going to expose these guys, because if you're going to try to lie about my faith, my Christ, my Jesus, I'm going to call you on it. I'm going to call you Yasser Jihadi Qadi and all the other worms that deal with that. Brad, you got anything to add before we go for the night? And I think I do the cold close automatically, if I'm not mistaken.
No, not really, except that Joe Biden has prostate cancer and is still mental decline, and they lied to us, and yeah. So,
say that one more time.
So no, nothing. Just that Joe Biden has stage 4 prostate cancer. And all of a sudden he got in the last 2 days, and he's still mentally fit and can serve out 4 more years as president, according to the lunatic. Well, they're melting down.
Yeah. You know, you got he's a former president of the United States. There's a certain amount of respect that I have. Even Jimmy Carter, you know, I would give him a certain amount of respect because of that. But what they did with this guy, it's not him. It's the people who work for him and that were able to manipulate him. Those are the ones that I want found out. You know, I wish him Godspeed, great health, healing, if it's God's will. But those people that did this to him, not give him cancer, but all these policies and things that were implemented during his presidency, they need to be found out and they need to be sent to jail.
Well, Trump clearly gave him cancer. That's obvious to everyone. But here's the funny thing, though. So I agree with you to a certain point. But here's the thing. Why do we have to have compassion for bad people when bad things happen to them? I'm not following that logic. That's beside the point.
Well,
but here's
the patriotism to
right. No, I get that.
You know, it's not really a sense of patriotism.
Yeah, I get that, and I agree with it. You know, but here's the thing. Think about this. And I actually have a good meme on this. You know, once the Democrats did not care about the life and well-being of their own president. What makes you think they cared about the life and well-being of us?
They don't.
And once you realize they didn't, and once you realize they didn't, their anti-American policies actually begin to make sense. And Trump has a new take on it. Did you see this from Trump? And I'll end with this, because I think this is brilliant. This is what Trump says. This was just now, like about an hour ago. Joe Biden was not for open borders. He never talked about open borders, where criminals of all kinds, shape, and sizes can flow into our country at will. It wasn't his idea to open the border and almost destroy our country and cost us hundreds of billions of dollars to get criminals out of our country and to go through the process we are going through now. It was the people that knew he was cognitively impaired and that took over the auto pen. They stole the presidency of the United States and put us in great danger. This is treason at the highest level. They did it to destroy our country. The Joe Biden that everybody knew would never allow drug dealers and gang members and the mentally insane to come into our country totally unchecked and unvetted. All anyone has to do is look up his record. Something very severe should happen to these treasonous thugs that wanted to destroy our country, but couldn't because I came along to make America great again. I think that's a great angle right there. Boom. That's how we go after them. That's how we go after them.
You know what that's going to happen. It's going to get caught up in all these congressional committees. The House will flip to the Democrats. It'll be swept under the rug, and you accomplish nothing. You got to get Bondi and Cash Patel after them.
Yeah, and then they're turning out to be major disappointments. Yeah. I just wish Bondi would, give up a full-time job as a Fox legal correspondent and focus on a real job as Attorney General. But anyway.
All right.
We'll leave it at that.
Today, we will see you all here next week on the Crossing the Crescent discussion group. If you have any topics that you want to talk about, you want to bring up, go ahead and email me at ericthekefer@gmail.com, and we'll take a look. We'll see you then. God bless.
Advanced student and specialist, that the standard narrative has holes. That's what
that the Muslims were rioting against one another. And as much as we don't want to face the fact, the Muslims were lying sometimes. They were fabricating, they were embellishing, and that might be hard to accept, but that is a reality.